In this Minecraft video, we are going to survive 300 days in Minecraft Hardcore's latest version, 1.17. As usual, the we are myself, to my left Austin, and to my right Chris. We've already survived 100 and 200 days in this world, and if you would like to watch either of those before we begin, there will be a link in the description below. And just before we begin, I'd like to say there is still a huge 90% of people not subscribed to the channel, and I ask that if you go on to enjoy the video, please consider doing so. I'm starting to get really close to 100k, and I'd love to hit that by the end of the year. Secondly, do you want one full year in this world where if you get this video to 5,000 likes, I'll convince them to do yet another video in this world? Please enjoy. Picking it back up then on day 201, we knew exactly what we was doing. First thing first, I stacked up on a little bit of food and picked up the sponges that we got from the Elder Guardians way back when and headed straight to the Ocean Monument. From those who remember from 200 days, we found a completely glitched and empty Ocean Monument and we wanted to clear it out. We got there on day 202 and began to attempt to empty out this monument with just the sponges that we had. Now we tried this for a little while, 5 to 10 minutes I'd say, and though I believe it would have been possible, it's hard to say. I think that if I did it with just the sponges, it would have taken way too long. Admittedly, I tried even longer than I should have to try and get this to work, but it was very clear that this just wasn't going to work. I gave up on day 203 and then headed back home because I had a second idea. You see, from last time as well, we did a 3v9 wither fight, and because we did that in the desert, the amount of sand that we picked up from that was probably going to help us empty out the actual monument itself. I should also mention by the end of this video, we are going to up the ante again, and instead of doing a 3v9 wither fight, we are yet again going to do a 3v9 wither fight, but we're also going to include the Enderdragon. I have to stay to the end of the video to watch that fight, but with a huge amount of sand, we headed back to the Ocean Monument. Austin wasn't convinced that that would have been enough sand, so he decided to head back to the desert to get a little bit more, and me and Chris headed straight back to the Ocean Monument, and it was by the end of 204 that we started placing the sand. It only took until the next day for Austin to come back with a plethora of sand, and the three of us got to sand placing for what felt like an eternity. We started this on day 205, and by the time we had it emptied out and was clearing up the sand one more time, it was day 212. Now we have a completely empty Ocean Monument, no water in it, and whatever we decide to do with this, it's going to be really cool. Once we had that completed on day 213, Austin and Chris decided it was time to go and get some wither skulls. They wanted to get that one out of the way nice and early, and I really don't blame them. Whilst they did that, I wanted to just do my own little thing. Every 100 days I like to add my own little build to this world, and I thought, you know what would be really cool in this world? A zoo. And so I spent my time flattening out the land near our home to put some pens in, and then we'll work on getting some animals in there. I was working on it all the way until day 219 when Austin and Chris finally returned. They got a grand total of 27 skulls between them, enough for 9 more withers, and they came back to see exactly what I was doing. It would be this point that I'd show you the audio clip of them being very frustrated at the fact that whilst they were doing something productive, I wasn't. However, this time I accidentally didn't record audio, so you just have to trust me when I say they wasn't too pleased that I was making a zoo in our land. By the end of day 222, I had all of the pens finished, all of the land flattened, and it was now time for me to get all of the animals in their custom pens. It took a little bit of bargaining, but I also convinced Chris and Austin to help me out with this venture, and so we all ventured out to find ourselves some animals. The easiest one immediately to get was actually the pandas and parrots. We knew there was a jungle nearby from the early days of this world, and so we headed straight there. The parrots were tamed and following us automatically. It was the pandas that were going to be an issue. We managed to get 2 into boats, but of course we then had to boat them all the way back to our spawn, which wasn't going to be easy. Day 225, and our productive world is being even more productive as we finally got back with the pandas. 2 pens done, only about 10 more to go. It was day 226 when we actually did a little bit of splitting up. The most difficult animal that I wanted was polar bears, and so being the madman that he is, Chris volunteered to head out into the world and search for an ice biome where we could get some polar bears. Him running away from me is the last time I will see him for a very long time. Thank God. Me and Austin also split up into our own ventures themselves. Austin went to go get some turtle eggs because he believed he knew where some turtle was in a nearby area, and I went hunting for some wolves. And while I was exploring on day 228, I actually found myself a beehive. I initially forgot that bees were a thing in Minecraft, so I didn't actually set them up a pen, but I'll pick them up, hope there's some bees in there, and take them back and set them up in their own little custom pen. And then on day 230, I finally found the wolves. I did forget to bring bones though. You could say I was really boned in this situation. I'm way too ill for this. Which reminds me, if you think there's a little bit of a difference in my voice, I do apologize. It's just because I have a bit of a cold thing going on. Anyway, on the night of 230, I spent the night hunting for some skeletons because, of course, I needed bones. The very next morning, I was able to get 3 wolves, which from this point onwards, I will name the Ratapack. I call them the Ratapack. Yes, I'm using old jokes from Manhunts to 1.17. What am I going to do about it? By the time I got back on day 232, I was all alone. It was kind of sad. I was able to get the wolves into their pen, and then I had to decide how I was going to pass the time until Austin and Chris got back. I decided to take the mules that we made all the way the first 100 days and give them their own pen. We was never going to use them, so they may as well be part of the exhibit. And after that, back to the ocean that was right near our base, I was able to get a dolphin and put him into his own pen as well. There's something really funny or really cruel, I can't decide which, of dragging a dolphin onto land and putting him in the world's tiniest cage. I mean, he looks like he enjoyed it in there. I wouldn't know, I don't speak dolphin. On day 235, I started working on some easy access transport to the ocean monument. Now, I'm sure most people would have just looked at this situation, decided the best way to do this would be to just set up a nether portal at the ocean monument and then a nether portal just connect them from the hub that we have in the nether. However, if you know anything about my series, you should know that I don't like to do the conventional thing. And so I decided to set up a monorail. My plan was to set up a underground rail all the way to spawn, so if we ever needed to head back to the ocean monument, we were just a minecart ride away. Whilst I was working on this, Austin actually completed his journey and found a mushroom biome. He was able to get the mushrooms back into their own pen, and then he started helping me on the monorail. We had the monorail officially completed on day 244. We just had to do a little bit of testing to make sure that the redstone track was all in the right place. And here is the final test that we did. It was day 246 where I took the monorail for its first official test run. I will speed up the footage for you. I just want to show that we did do a full track all the way from the ocean monument to our base. And since we got the time as well, I will do my usual video of just thanking you guys so much for supporting this series. I always love reading the comments and just seeing how many people just enjoy watching my content. And like I say all the time, I will keep making this content for as long as you people enjoy it. I'm currently out of the country visiting my fiance. However, all of my 100 days videos are recorded for the next month, so expect 3 more 100 days video by June's end. That's enough jibber jabber, let's get back to the video. Day 247, we headed back to the jungle because we forgot ocelots were a thing. Also tried to get them into boats, which was a bit of a surprise. The amount of wandering traders he's made it over the time, how did he forget that leads were a thing? We was able to get the ocelots onto leads and ran all the way back home, and it was on the morning of 249 that we got the 2 ocelots into their pen after a little bit of confusion trying to get them in. I blame Austin. We pretty much finished for the zoo for the time being. The only thing we really needed from this point was the polar bears, and so me and Austin got onto some more work. The one thing we didn't have in this world was an XP farm, and because of endermines, from what Austin tells me, making 1.16 enderman grinding farms should be really simple to do. We gathered a bunch of materials, primarily leaves, just because we needed a huge amount of blocks, and after that we headed straight into the end. Now I'm going to pretend from this point onwards that I helped out Austin a lot. It was a 50-50 job. Both did an even amount of work. Just ignore the footage of me standing around AFK. I'll be 100% honest with you. Like I say, I was going to see my fiance and I was trying to sort out a flight issue that I was having. Austin knows that I helped him just as much as he needed. Just again, ignore the footage. And once our 50-50 job was completed by day 254, we had the Enderman farm completed. At first, we couldn't figure out why the Enderman wasn't being tracked to it, but after a very easy fix, well, let's just say it works like a charm. I spent the rest of the day getting the XP to fix up all of my armor thanks to the mending, and then I had to give Austin my sword to let him do the same because apparently he's an axe boy. And before people insult me for using a sword like I always do in Manhunt, PvP is axe, survival is sword. There is a clear difference between the two. Do do not at me. On day 257, we started doing a auto schmelter. I got the idea from a different 100 days and decided that it would have been nice to set it up. Admittedly, most of the time was just me trying to explain exactly how this would work to Austin, but we eventually got it figured out. A lot of standing around and discussing exactly how we were going to make this work. It was day 268, would you believe, by the time we had this smelter completed. It wasn't even that complicated. It really shouldn't have taken that long. However, let's go back in time a little bit, because it was on day 265 that Chris finally popped through the nether portal for the first time in forever. I haven't seen that man in so long. He hasn't been showering, trust me, I know. As we was entering the ender portal, I took a shot at Austin and he dodged, which made me accidentally kill the chicken. You know, the chicken that's been there since the start that Austin tied up? There was a lot of hostility towards myself when that happens, but in my defense, if he just took the shot like a man, then the chicken wouldn't have died. He took us to the ice biome that he had found to show us how far away it actually was. Me and Austin had other things to do, so we just decided to let him work on getting the polar bears back, and we were going to carry on doing his work. He was going to make a path all the way to the polar bears, and we were going to carry on doing what we was doing. Anyway, back to day 269, the farm that we had was just so basic that I just wanted to upgrade it a little bit. The only problem that I had is that there wasn't much flat land around me. So after spending a couple of minutes trying to figure out the best place to put this, I decided to just make a sky farm. It was something really basic just to be able to extend out all the farms, and I'll keep coming back to this here or there just to make sure that all the crops are growing properly. But a nice little sky farm full with carrots, potato, wheats, and melons was set up nicely in the sky nearby our base. Whilst I was doing that, Austin was making a few paths around. It was basic, but it did make the world look a little bit nicer, so can't really complain. Once we had that all completed by day 276, Chris was finally back with the polar bears. We got them into their pen and it was time to celebrate because the three of us were together for the first time in so long. And how did we celebrate, did you ask? Pick step! Woo! It was a very productive day, as you can probably tell. Day 277, we made a decision that was going to cost us the rest of the time in this world. For those who remember, in the first 100 days, we set up a full-powered iron beacon. I thought it would have been really cool to use the other wither stars we've got and the other beacons we've got to fill out a full beacon of gold and potentially a full beacon of diamonds. And so I worked on getting fortune 3 on my pickaxe. By the time I headed out on day 288, I had a fortune 3 diamond pickaxe, and it was now time for me to go and get as much gold as possible. We all got back together on day 282 to see if we had enough gold. I was fairly confident we did. The 1.17 caving system is just so full of every ore that it really didn't take us that long, especially considering we already had a huge amount of gold stored up just sitting there waiting for other things to happen. As well, we did have 2 tier 1 gold beacons, so really this actually wasn't that difficult. A full tier 3 gold beacon was completed by day 283, and it was celebration time because 2 full beacons was completed. And since we had 2 beacons completed, I wanted us to make a 3rd beacon, this one full of diamond blocks. Now these two, quite rightly so, tried to convince me that this was a bad idea because there was no way in the world we was going to complete this in time. However, I'm way too stubborn to listen to those 2 sidekicks. That's right, I called them sidekicks. What are they going to do, cry about it? And so we spent the next 10 days hunting for diamonds. Again, thanks to the fortune 3, I got plenty of diamonds needed, but it came very quickly apparent that there was no way in the world we was going to get enough diamonds to complete this beacon. By day 293, we headed back to see how much diamonds we actually had. Now, I'm sure somebody could tell me in the comments exactly how many diamond blocks you need to complete this, but I guarantee you the diamonds we have in this sugar box is nowhere near enough to complete it. Even with the diamonds we have spare over, there was not a cat in hell's chance that we was going to complete this diamond beacon by the end of the 300 days. And so, even though we had a lot of diamonds spare, we made the call to just leave that for potentially the next video. Remember to hit the like goal. And it was time for the next big fight. In 100 days, we did 3v3. In 200 days, we did 3v9. And in 300 days, we decided that it was going to be 10 versus 3. Except the 10th person wasn't going to be a wither. It was going to be the Enderdragon himself. And so by day 294, once we had the beacon fully completed, I started brewing some potions over again. The pots were brewed with a bunch of health, regeneration, speed, and strength. All splash potions, of course, because they are the best kind of potion. And after making the ender crystals, we headed to the end and prepared for the final fight. The plan was simple. I was going to spawn the Enderdragon, and once I spawned the Enderdragon, they was going to spawn the Withers at the same time, and we was going to have an epic 10v3 Wither fight. However, we ran into a few complications, let's say. Let's play the clip for you. So here's me spawning in the Enderdragon. Once I spawned in the Enderdragon and it began its spawning animation, these guys decided to spawn the Withers at the same time. It was previously agreed that we were going to spawn them all at the same time. However, we didn't realize how much of a mistake this actually was until this moment. The Withers were spawned way too close to the Ender crystals where the dragon was. And even though I didn't know this was possible, the Withers spawning explosion blew up the Ender crystal spawning in the Ender Dragon, which stopped the Ender Dragon from spawning. It was back to a 9v3 Wither fight. Problem 2. The Withers didn't want to fight us, they wanted to fight the Endermen in the end. And so compared to last time, in my opinion, this was a lot easier. Mainly because the majority of the Withers were distracted with the Endermen. For the most part, I was able to 1v1 the Withers themselves, which I'll be honest with you, really isn't that difficult. And it was by the end of 297 that we had killed all 9 Withers. I had got 4 Wither stars on me, and the other 2 had enough to make 9 full Withers, so we knew that we killed them all. I wasn't completely satisfied with it though, so I headed back to the overworld to quickly get some more Ender crystals, and yet again we respawned the Ender Dragon and did a 3v1 fight. At this point in this world, it was pathetically easy. Just look at its health drop. It was sad. And by the end of day 298, we had technically won the 10v3. Admittedly, we made a few mistakes spawning the Wither near the Ender Dragon, and we just didn't have enough time to go and get more Wither skulls. And so we'll probably redo this fight in 400 days if we get the like goal. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. And how did we celebrate getting to day 300, you ask? Big step! Woo! Alright, thanks for watching, everybody.